much.
Okay, yeah. So, like I was saying, just to a quick recap. So I was trained formally in product management. So the company I worked for then, in their wisdom, organized for myself and my other colleagues to be formally trained in product management. So we are privileged. So, then, now, it's easier. You have InnovaLab, you have other platforms, that organize product management training that you pay. And then COVID even helped, and people can then learn virtually. And then you have these kinds of sessions. So in our own case, at that time, the only thing we had was product school. Product school was there in wherever it is, and then you just have organizers, and then we just move. I remember then we went to a place like, we went to Andela's office, we went to Flutterwave office, we just go company to company, and then we just organize, have refreshment, we just talk about product management. So then, it was, you transport yourself to go to a place just to learn. That was how we were learning. So myself and my colleague, we were very privileged, to have that opportunity of learning product management, using a curriculum. It was a 3 to 6 months training, and we had a curriculum. In fact, the curriculum was that deep, such that we had courses paid for us by the company, that we had to, for example, courses in Udemy. We had books. For example, that was where I read this book, Inspired, for the first time. That was where I read Sprints for the first time, this thing. So we had that depth of knowledge. And the person who was training us, like I said, was a product manager. He's also a user experience researcher in Google. So he was responsible for some depth of user experience research in sub-Saharan Africa, right? So we really had a good experience, a good opportunity to learn, and then we also had products to work on. We had real products that we could practicalize, because then the engineers, you are not looking for engineers. We had trainees that could work on this product, and then you could really see that process. So these were fundamental, these were foundational to the things I know today, right? And then as I began to move from places to places, as I moved from company to company, I had different experiences, different learning, all the things you hear about, there's no right or wrong answers about product management. I saw it firsthand. Different companies operated product management in different ways. Yes, there are thin lines, right? So, but I can tell you, having moved to about 8 to 10 companies, there were different methods, right? It's still product management. And that brings me to, before I jump into what we have today, right? So because of those who are intending product managers, right? So I want to also explain this. And then there are certain things that we have believed before now about product management that I want to kind of give more meaning to it. I don't want to say that they are wrong, but let me just say I want to give more meaning to it based on the experiences I've had, and we'll dive right at it. Okay, so first of all, I want to say that product management, before I jump into what we have today, I want to say that product management. So if you're here, you're a product manager, you're a quality assurance engineer, you're a software engineer, whatever it is that you're practicing in the tech space, I want to say, without mincing words, that product management is not the role of a product manager alone, right? So product management is a process. Earlier today, I was telling someone that the way I would define product management is the way back then when you're in school, you are told that a noun, they talk about a noun, they talk about an adjective, and tell you that an adjective qualifies a noun or gives more meaning to it, it complements it. And the same thing, they talk about a verb and an adverb. So in this particular case, I would say that product management gives more meaning to software engineering, and I will explain, right? If I ask us the meaning of product management here, everybody will have different explanations to it. But the definition I'll be using today is the definition that was given by the Association of International Products Marketing and Management. They define product management as the process of 7 processes. The process of, number 1, conceiving, planning, developing, testing, launching, delivering, and withdrawing a product from the market, right? And then when you look at all these things, you see that it cuts across most processes in software engineering. So I mentioned I'm going to be speaking in just layman understand, so everyone can understand. So for example, you cannot say that you're a software engineer and then you can't plan, right? Or you can't even conceive an idea. You can't just start writing codes. you must have conceived something, an idea that you want to build. You must have planned that this is what you want to do. And even after building, you want to test. And then after testing, you want to deliver the product. You want people to see it. You want people to make use of it. And sometimes you hear things like you pivoted, you kill the product, you withdrew the product, that is withdrawing product from the market. Or you hear things like a product, software version 1, version 2. What happened is that version 1 has been withdrawn and then version 2 is come. So when you are practicing this, that is product management, right? And then you begin to wonder, what then is the role of a product manager? So the product manager, again, if I ask us, you hear things like product manager is the CEO of the product, defines the why, defines the what, and all of that. You hear different versions. You hear things like product manager wears different hats and all of that, right? So the reason why I'm making this explanation is for us to understand who a product manager is. So I have given what is product management. It's a process of doing 7 things, like I said. The product manager's role is to help in facilitating this process of product management. So they may not be a software engineer who develops the product, but they help software engineers in doing this by making sure that everything is clear, the vision is clear. The product manager does not totally, owns the responsibility of the product vision. They do this in collaboration with others, right? So that is why you hear that product manager wear different hats. As part of the process, you talk about qualifying, or testing a product. Product manager also is involved in that process. Talk about launching a product. You cannot launch a product without the involvement of a product manager, right? So the product manager is like a leader, right? That helps this process of product management to come into fulfillment, right? So a product manager is not some of the things we know them to be, all right? They are facilitators, they are leaders. They help to make this process possible and make it more efficient. So having established that, I would dive at that. I will go right into it. This is what we're going to be discussing the next 20 minutes, and then the rest of the time is I'll just take questions. So don't get scared about the words, some of the terminologies you might be seeing. We're going to explain it in details what they mean, right? So the first thing we'll be talking about is understanding the concept of product discovery and product delivery, right? The topic is, we're taking a deep dive into product discovery, but we need to understand discovery and delivery. And then we'll understand the goal of product discovery and product delivery. And I'm going to talk about degree of certainty. I'll explain this when we move down. And then we'll eventually take that deep dive into product discovery. And then I'm going to talk about some approaches in product discovery. But for the purpose of today, because it's a brief session, I'm only going to speak on one of the process, which is the double diamond structure or double diamond design process, if you like. And then maybe I'll share a link where I had talked about the other approach, as we progress. Okay. So the concept of product discovery and delivery. So software product development starts with 2 processes. Everything I explained when I said that product management is a process of conceiving, planning, developing, testing, launching, delivering, and withdrawing a product. These are processes of product development. And this entire process, if you want to summarize them into 2, it is product discovery and product delivery. So product development starts with discovery and it ends with delivery. What then is product discovery? Product discovery are all the activities that is about deciding what to build. So whenever you hear discovery during the course of this class, just associate it with decision making. Associated with decision making. And we're going to dive deeper, right? And then whenever you hear delivery, these are all the activities, which includes writing of code, shipping the product to the, when you say, oh, this company has launched and all of that. So it's all the activities that happens from the point of developing the code, developing the product, to the point it launches or it's out to the public. So associate it with build. So the combination of these 2 is actually what brings about a product being developed. You decide on what to build and then you build. Okay. Now, moving forward, what is the goal of these 2? There is a goal of doing delivery and discovery. The overall goal for discovery is to learn. So what are you learning? You're trying to understand if this product should be built or not, right? You're trying to go through that process of understanding, the demographics. You're trying to understand the market. Are you sure you really want to build this or not? And then delivery you are at that point, you're trying to get business outcomes, right? So you want to learn and build. So the way I try to explain this to keep it even simple is that it's like saying you are preparing for an examination, right? The outcome is that you want to get a degree or want to do this. So you have to go through a process of learning, right? When you learn, you are kind of preparing maybe to write your final exam or whatever it is and to get a certification. That is discovery. Delivery is when you start writing the exam and eventually when you pass and say this is the certification, right? So this thing is just, and for all of them, it's kind of an iterative process. It doesn't matter if you are starting or if you're trying to build a product from scratch or it's an existing product. Whichever it may be, you are always practicing discovery and delivery at one point or the other. Okay, so let's move a little bit faster or jump at it. So degree of certainty, I'm getting somewhere. So this is just saying, how do you know when to apply discovery? How do you know when to apply, we just go ahead to build. Remember I said discovery is decision making, and then I talked about delivery being building a product. So what you have here is just saying that if there is clarity, there is no form of uncertainty as to what you are supposed to build. Like it's already clear. For example, let's say you are building a project or a product for a client who have already said, you know what, I want a website that just does this. I want to be able to sell bags on this website. It's clear. These are the people, like you don't even have to even bother or do any research about who. They already know their customers. Let me assume that these businesses already exist. And that's why I said that, look, if you want to talk about product management, it kind of give more meaning to software engineering. I was explaining to someone today that if you look at, for some of you who are product managers, there's this Venn diagram that is used to represent product management. And then you see UX, which is talking about user experience, human being, and then you talk about business, you talk about technology. And I told the person that, look, businesses and human beings can exist without technology. But technology on its own must have a purpose. What does that simply mean? You can have a business running without technology getting involved. What technology does is to make the process more efficient. For example, before now, people used to go to churches or do things, physically, right? And that was happening before technology came in or before COVID came. But when COVID came and all of that, it helped them to kind of improve on the existing process. But if the technology exists, if you just said, oh, you want to just build an online church and you just go ahead and build a software and say it's for an online church or just a streaming platform, and then you do not have human beings, you do not have there is no business model to that or anything like that. It cannot thrive. So the point here is that there are cases where there is already clarity. We are doing this. We are selling shoes. We are selling bags. But we want a platform that allows us to do this more efficiently. So there is clarity. At that point, you just build based on the specification that was given to you. But some other times, there is the uncertainty level. It's not very clear. There is still a level of some uncertainty. Yes, the person knows what they want to do, but you still want to do some level of research or something. You want to confirm, do we really need to do this or not? And then in that stage, you need to do product discovery, right? And then maybe it's even a case of you already have a product and then you want to improve the product, you want to improve the product, or you want to enter a new market, right? Yes, people already know you in this space, but you want to expand. There is some level of uncertainty. You are not 100% sure if your users would use this new product, this new feature. So at that point, you still do product discovery. And then you talk about much uncertainty, where you are building a product from scratch. Or again, you are entering a new market that is kind of, that's what they talk about, product line and product width and all of that. You are trying to enter a new space. It's still in line with what you are doing, but you don't have any data, no information at all, right? So at that point, you do things like assumption mapping, you get things about user journey and things like that. And then you do a lot of research, you prioritize the things you want to do and all of that. And then at that point, you still need to do product discovery, right? So this is just showing at what point do you do product discovery, or do you just jump into delivery and start building? So yeah, so I believe that explains itself. Okay, so before we dive deep, so I just want to confirm that everybody so far, we are all on the same page, in terms of the foundation of, even for those who are not probably in product management or have not been involved in product management before. So I just want to get some kind of confirmation before we jump at it, because this is the main thing, right? So I was just building foundation before we go into this. So can I get a response from the chat session? Just someone indicating something that just reflects that so far so good, we're on the same page. At least a confirmation to be sure that everyone is hearing me and I'm not out of the call. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So all of what I've been saying now is just to make sure that we're on the same page. It's an introduction. Now we're going to product discovery. So just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I don't want to lose you guys at any point. So if at any point, if you're getting confused, I know we still ask questions, but if you are getting lost, you can just call me back. It doesn't matter. I won't get distracted. Yeah. So now, thank you for those of you that commented. Now, having a deep dive, which is the main topic of the day, into product discovery. What is product discovery? Or why do we carry out product discovery? Product discovery is carried out to determine if and why, emphasis, if and why a product, a feature, set of features should be developed or improved upon. In other words, it is not only for new products. It can also happen for existing products. It is a method of deeply understanding your customers or users, I call it customer-centric, to develop products that perfectly suits their needs, wants, or desires. And then this brings me to one of the things, I mentioned in the beginning, before we switched over, that there are certain things that are half-truths, that are not complete. So you hear a lot of times when people talk about product management, they'll say, pain points, pain points. So I want to establish that it's not all the time that you are solving a pain point. For example, tell me, let me use iPhone, for example, iPhone 14 Pro Max. Please, what is the pain point? If anyone can just tell me the answer, what is the pain point? Is there any pain point there? If anyone knows any pain point? Yeah, so now, but they are solving a need for some people. Call it show off, that's your problem. Call it desires, that's your problem. I give you another example. Elon Musk is trying to build, I think, a spaceship that will allow people to go to Mars. Please, can anybody tell me what is the pain point in going to Mars? People just want to have lived on this earth. So some of you who are in Lagos might be saying you have lived in the mainland, want to live in Ireland. That is your desire, right? Or some people will tell you that they are comfortable and all of that. The same way you are tired of living in mainland or somewhere, that's how some people want to experience Mars or somewhere else apart from Earth. These are desires. It's not a pain point. But what I like to call these are opportunities. So sometimes you are just trying to meet some people's desire, wants, or need. It has nothing to do with the pain points, right? And it's important you understand this because you need to know who you are building for. If you fail to understand this from the beginning, you might just end up replicating something in another product that will not work for your users. The reasons, again, why I said this is that one of the things I've done, or when I was studying product management, when I started, one of the courses we had was evaluation of startup failures to understand why startups fail. You see products that are successful in other countries, you try to replicate it in your country, and it fails. Why? The market is different. People's behavior are different. You begin to wonder. So for those of you who have used Uber and Bolt, why is it that some people are using Uber? Why is it that some people are using Bolt? And some people are so faithful and they want to remain there. Let's use bank. Some people use First Bank, some people have GT. If I ask you why using it, you have your reasons. We talk about fintech companies. Sometimes when I hear about some fintech, I've never heard of them. But when you hear the number of customers they have, you'll be asking yourself, where are these people coming from? How manage? Product discovery helps you to understand that. Because if you understand them, then you build a product that perfectly suits their needs, wants, or desire. If you get it wrong, you are setting yourself up for failure. And again, in a very simple way to explain that, those of you who are in school, you don't do copy. Product is not copy and paste. Some people copy back then, so even copy some people's reg number, things like that, just because they don't even know how to copy and all of that. But now, the point I'm trying to make here is this. The same way success is predictable, failure is predictable. Now, carrying out product discovery doesn't mean that if you do a very good product discovery and then the outcome shows that your product makes sense, it doesn't guarantee 100% that you are going to build a perfect product, or that people will use this product and it's going to be a successful product. However, at least up to 50%, you've done your due diligence. You've done what you are supposed to do. It's like saying you've prepared for an exam. If for any reason, maybe you've studied this particular lecturer, for example, and then they always ask past questions, they always do this, and then this exam, they changed it. At least you prepared. But if you fail to prepare, which is the product discovery, and then you just go ahead to build, you might be lucky, right? So, and some people tell you, oh, failure is when you pivot and all of that. And I always ask people, sometimes we've heard a lot of things that become cliche, and we just believe them, without really knowing if that will always work. People tell you that, oh, failure is part of success. I agree. People tell you fail forward, and they just build it, just test it out there. But in my opinion, I'll tell you that even success is predictable. If I ask all of you here who have gone through schools, you've gotten A's, you didn't have to get an F before you had an A. You prepared to make an A. Sometimes after preparing, you still fail, and then you rebuild. So the point I'm trying to make is that product discovery is something that you must do if you have intentions to be successful in building that product. There are things that might come up, unforeseen circumstances. For example, before COVID-19, there are businesses or products that made sense, but when COVID came, it changed the narrative. Doesn't mean that they didn't know what they were doing. These are unforeseen. It doesn't happen all the time, right? And then there are also some businesses that thrived after COVID. So the point I'm trying to make here is that it is very critical to determine if and why a product is to be built. Now, moving over, there are a number of approaches of how to go about product discovery. I've identified two. I'm sure there may be more. Talk about the double diamond structure and the opportunity solution tree. In my opinion, I try to use more of double diamond structure if I'm dealing with a new product that no one has seen, or maybe something that is new that you're building from scratch. And then I use more of opportunity solution tree by Teresa Torres, to do for existing products, and so, but for the purpose of this class or this session, I'll just focus on double diamond structure. But like I said, I have an article I've written. I'm going to share that after now, that talks where I reflected a bit more about the opportunity solution tree, and then you can read it. I also talked about double diamond structure, but I'm going to focus for the purpose of this class, double diamond structure or double diamond design process. I'm going to use that to reflect on product discovery. All right. Now, the double diamond structure. So using this structure, like I said here, you try to think in two ways. You view problems, you view your solutions in two different ways: divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So for those of you who did science or whatever, divergent is just like saying, you are. So if you watch my hand, it's going in a certain direction. You are thinking broadly. It's like you are open-minded, right? So talk about that in terms of reflection of light. Okay, you are thinking open-minded. You consider anything and everything that is possible, right? And then convergent, you try to think narrowly. Okay, what is the conclusion? I will show this using a diagram or illustration, right? And then convergent is that you are thinking narrowly. You are focusing back to identify one key problems or solutions. So if you notice, I had written them as S, problems or solutions. The reason why I put them at S, you see that, and that's where you talk about product strategy. Why is it that certain companies take certain routes in terms of their decision making? For example, we are in Google Meet here. The goal is still the same thing that Zoom will do. But why is it that Google Meet look a certain way? There are certain ways things are done. It's different from how Zoom is doing. They're solving the same problem. Their solution is different. Product strategy. They have the reasons for doing that. They might be solving for their own kind of customers, right? So we need to understand this. So moving forward. So again, just a confirmation in the chat session. Are we all on the same page? Because everything we're going to be saying here in the next 10 minutes will be on this, and then I'll take question. So far, are we all still on the same page? This is like where I'm going to be doing most of the talking. Yeah. Okay. Good. Great. Okay. So moving over, the double diamond structure. So I try to use this image to explain this. So if you recall, when I was reflecting on when people say pain points, when people say needs and wants, so I kind of categorize them as opportunities. So whether it's pain points, so that people, oh, you want to solve transportation, and then you decide that you want to go to, let's say, Lekki or Ireland, and you say you want to go and build train for them. That is, you saw, now that is a problem. You are trying to solve problem. So if you've read a book called, I think, the Lean Product Playbook, you hear about the what do they call it? Anyway, so let me don't digress. So the point is this: you want to solve a problem on transportation. You don't just conclude and say people in this area that their problem as far as transportation is concerned to decongest traffic, they need train. Now the people living in Lekki, they may not need train because they have G-Wagon, they have Phantom Rolls Royce and all of that. You can't just conclude that because of everybody is always in the traffic with their car, if you build train, nobody will be on the traffic. That means with the content, it doesn't work that way. So the first step, you know, of the double diamond structure is the discover stage. So you've identified an opportunity, right? And then you've said, for example, you've said transport. Let me use transport. So that is the opportunity. There is a problem you want to solve. People are always on traffic, or you just want to make transport easy for people. That is an opportunity. That is a problem you want to solve. Some people, it's not that they cannot get, so when you start looking at the problem, now they're different, you see how we spread the problem. Now, what you do at this stage is that you've decided that the opportunity you want to solve, or the problem you want to solve is, you know, transportation, is get towards transportation. You know, it is at this stage, you do your research, you interact with different kinds of people. Of course, you are solving that problem in a place, in a locality, right? You speak to them if you have the opportunity to speak with them physically, or you do survey, or do whatever you need to do. This is where interaction happens. I mean, the people you are speaking to are your potential users. You don't just go and meet a random person, for example, who probably will not use your software, and then you're asking them, maybe someone who is their 80s, and then you're interacting or engaging them. For some of you who are also deep in product management, you know what we'll talk about, what we call personas. So you need to know who this person you'll be speaking to are, right? And then you hear from them what their problem is. Do you even know whether that problem you want to solve, whether they're even interested? Some people are okay where they are. They don't need you to come and spoil anything. They are okay. That's why you hear things like not all problems are worth solving. There are products that Google has killed because the beauty is that people are not using them. They ended it. Google used to have Hangouts, but I don't know if that's still functional, but at some point, they sunsetted. I think they've improved it again or something like that. But the point is that this is when you interact with people. And then here you are employing, you know, I talked about Divergent and Convergent. So you are going to be open-minded. Yes, I want to solve the problem in transportation. Okay, what are the problems in transportation? Not just, no, I want to build train. No. The first thing you do is to find out the opportunities, the problems. What are the problems associated with transport? You're open-minded. And then you might have some assumptions. Gives you the opportunity to validate these assumptions. So you might think that, look, people is trained as a problem. And then when you engage, let's say 100, a mass of, let's say 100 people, a sample size of, let's say 100 people, I found that 80 people are really saying that, look, it's not even, they just want something that they can make, they can just request for a ride. They don't want to be standing in traffic. They just want to order a ride. And I'm just assuming that this is the thinking of Uber or Bolt. Now, what has happened is that you have kind of identified, okay, you're trying to solve this problem. You know, maybe it's the area of just making people to be able to request ride or not. It's still transport. Somebody is thinking about train, but you have now identified so many problems. People have said, no, you know what? I want to be using boats. I'm going to Ikorodu. I don't even want to do Uber. I want to be using boat. I work in Ikorodu. I live in Ireland. I think I just need boats. I'll just move me from there to there. These are people saying different problems. And then the next stage is you've discovered these problems. It's not all problems that you are interested in solving, or it's not all problems that you have the resources to solve. So the next stage is defining. After you have discovered this problem, is to define. So at this point, what you are doing is that you are prioritizing the problems, and then you are moving from general problem of transportation to more specific problem. So again, this problem, it may not be a pain point. It may just be a desire, because there are people in this life, they will never use Bolt or Uber. In fact, they will convince you that you are wasting money by entering Bolt or Uber. So you will decide that this is the specific problem I want to solve, and these are the people I want to solve it for. So but a lot of people do not do this. They skip the research points. They don't prioritize their problem, and then they just jump in and say, hey, this is the problem I'm solving. You know, people have this problem. I'm sure. Then you are missing the mark. Right? Now, you may have 5 problems you've identified, but product discovery allows you to say, okay, let's start with 1. Okay, 70% of the people have this problem. 20% has this, 30%. Let's start with the one that has more people in it. So at that point, you're employing convergent thinking. You've spread it, and then you're now narrowing down to, out of your list of 5 problems you've identified, you're going to 1. And you said, this is the one I want to get based on the insights you've received. Okay? And again, this is iterative. Now, after you've identified your problems, you don't just assume that the solution you have is the best solution to it. That takes you to the next stage. You develop. So at the point of developing, what you are simply doing is, because this is halfway through the diamond. So the whole idea of the double diamond structure is just showing that if you look at this, look like diamond shape and all of that. So this is halfway through the diamond, right? So what you are doing at this stage is that now those specific problems, you are kind of trying to come up with solutions. You are brainstorming on solutions to them. So again, when I was saying that product management is for everybody, not just for product manager, you engage your team. The research you've done, you didn't do it for yourself. You get the research, you share it with your team. This is what we found out. Deal with data, tell them everybody is on the same page with you. Even the person who write the code, they understand why we are solving this problem. And they can come up with solution so that when they are doing, there's less ambiguity. What does that do? It saves you time. Because if the engineers, the quality assurance engineer, the person design don't even understand why we are choosing to solve this problem, they may end up giving a different type, or they may just end up building a product for themselves or how they feel. You know, I mean, I can give you an example. Physical product that you know. If you go to cigarettes, they write it, I mean, they actually warn you about smoking. So what that tells you that probably even the founder does not even smoke cigarettes. But the point is that he's solving a problem for some people who needs it. I mean, someone was telling me today that one of the people who owns a company that manufactures COVID vaccine has never taken COVID because he said he wants to control what gets into his body. But that is not his business. His business is that he wants to solve problem for some people by solving the COVID-19 problem. You don't have to like the problem. I mean, you don't need to like the solution. You may feel like it's a certain way, but except you are the one that will build and buy your products or pay for your products or subscribe to your products, then that's fine. But if you're not the one, then you have to go in the direction of what the data is saying. So you allow your team, you allow everybody to be the CEO, everybody to come up with solutions, right? You're figuring out, trying to understand, okay, which of the possible solutions. Okay, we say we want to do Uber for service. Okay, what is the solution to the driver? Oh, want to make, so you prioritize the kind of, how you want to solve this problem. You begin to prioritize, okay, we want to focus more on the driver, we want the driver to make more money. Oh no, we want the passengers to be more comfortable and all of that. Again, that's why I said that at that point, you're thinking, you're considering different things, different solutions to your problems and all of that. And then you get to the other stage, the deliver stage. So the point where between your ideation and prototyping stage, meanwhile, all this is when you talk about design thinking and all of that, there is interaction between you and the users or the potential users. You're asking them, you've come up with a solution. You talk about low fidelity sketch and all of that. You go back, you ask your users, and then they are saying, oh, this is actually how they want to solve this. Or you suggest some solutions, and then they are, they're reciprocating and say, okay, yes. There's this validation. At the end of the day, with these your solutions, you subject them to testing. After you've tested them, the best thing to do is the solution that appears to be the most acceptable one, right, is what you then go and say, this is the solution we're going to take. Now, recall that I said, sorry, I'm out of power. Remember that I mentioned that product strategy, I mean, this is where strategy comes, where organizations, right, choose that they want to go in a certain direction. Now they may have done the same research, but at the end of the day, the outcome of their research, suggested that they should go in a certain direction. And that kind of informs the direction they're eventually going to. And gives birth to the solution, which is the last stage, deliver. So at this deliver is where, of course, they've tested that solution, and then they've concluded and say, okay, this is the direction we're going to, and eventually they build out that product based on that. And then you might find out that they are successful. And then you, without doing this research, you just try to copy and paste, their solution. It might not work for you because your users might be totally different. Your users think might be totally different. Their behavior might be different. The way they see things might be different. So it's important for you to go through this process. So essentially, this process is the process you go to finally arrive at say, okay, this is what we're building. So if you do this and do it correctly, tendencies or chances that you will be successful is high. But if you skip this process, it might not work, right? So, so let me just conclude and then I'll take questions. So in conclusion, while it might be tempting to keep your team very busy and focused on product delivery, oh, let's build this and let's just send it out. Let's see what people do. It is better to focus the entire team in product discovery. That is what true cross-functional collaboration is about, all right? And where everyone is focused in deciding and figuring out emphasis on what should be built. And then after that, you can then say, okay, you want to pivot, you want to change direction, you want to improve and all of that. So at this point, I think I'll just take questions so that, I may address key things. So I'll take questions at this point. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That's like an amazing one. Thank you so much. You broke everything down into very understandable pieces, and yeah, thank you so much for that one. So guys, if we have questions for Micheal, let's raise our hands so that Micheal can take our questions. And yeah, so guys, if you have questions, please start asking your questions. All right, Tajuddin Olaiton, please, let's have you.
Thank you, Micheal, for that piece. Well delivered. Thank you. So I just have question. I'm just curious, right? At product delivery, probably you're trying to build up something, and you have this idea, and you are at the crossroad of trying to even have a demography of the people you are supposed to talk to, breaking it down. So from your experience, how do you narrow down to, okay, I think I should go first with this set of people, or this, for example, if you have a product that maybe speaks to, I usually hear this, products are not meant for, you are not supposed to build product for, you can build it for everyone, but don't build product that because you want to build for everyone, right? So, if you have a product that maybe solves a larger percentage of people, and you are trying to find a way to, because if you are interviewing or trying to get questionnaires from or survey from people, it may be large one, right? And try to narrow it down. So from your experience, can you just give an insight on how to systematically do this discovery and try to narrow it down, then probably move from there? That was my question.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So just to summarize your question, let me know if I derail. What I got from it was that how do you narrow down, the people you are solving the problem from? Is that correct? So, or maybe if you can just help us with just one sentence.
Perfect. I think you just nailed it. Yes. How do you narrow down to? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I always like to, so again, like I said, I'm going to be making reference to products that right? And, let me just use Nigerian products, so let me not talk about international products. So let me use Nigerian products. So Flutterwave, for example. So I would imagine that when Flutterwave started, their thinking was that they want to solve problem of payments, right? They want to make payments easy. So now they want to make payments easy. The question is, for who? They cannot just say they want to make payment for just anybody. So they would have done their research to say, okay, they want to make payments easy for, is it for people who is it for big businessmen who do importation or not? Is it for the people in the markets, right? Is it for people, for example, people who are not educated, that let's say are in Alaba market or something like that, or what kind of people? right? So now their thinking would, I'm just saying how they would have been thinking, and then where they would have gotten the, I'm just trying to put myself in the position of Flutterwave, how they would have arrived at and said, you know, this is the people I'm building for. So they would have first of all said, who, I mentioned persona. So persona is like you specifying your ideal user type, who this person is, the age bracket, is it a Gen Z or something like that? Who is your ideal user type? Is it an old woman in the village somewhere, or is it someone in Alaba International Market, or who, right? So they would have concluded that, look, the people I want to solve this problem for are people who are tech savvy, you know, who mostly do mobile banking, right? Who is not people who write check, who give people check, is people who actually, they're already using what looks like a mobile application. They can transfer money, they can do this. They are trying to make online payment, they can transfer. So how do we, who are these kind of people? That gives them an idea. So it must be people who are using mobile banking or are used to doing online stuff. That helps them to kind of narrow down the people they should go and even ask questions to. So out of, let's say 200 million people living in Nigeria, maybe this population is about 10 million. They've reduced it. And then they now say, okay, how do we identify these 10 million people that, you know, what's the best sample size? Okay, can we speak to people who are like this? Let's speak to about 1,000 of them. Let's do our research based on them. These are the people they now engage in conversation, right? They're now saying, okay, you've been doing this kind of payment. How would you prefer? So that's another thing that people do. You don't ask the leading question. Where you need to do the job is to, first of all, you need to suspect that these are the people that I suspect will be users of my products. You need to have some kind of, I mean, for those of you that knows link canvas model, right? So you have some people in mind, people from, I'm trying not to go, I don't want to use too much of product management terminology because of some people here who are not listening, you know. So it's called persona. You need to say, okay, it's between people from 20 to 25. So you need to suspect that these are the people that will use my product. So if these are the people, I need to speak with people within this age bracket. And then you can say you want to speak to 100 people, get insights for them. Then whatever you get, demography, thank you. Whatever you get as information from that, at that point, you can assume that that is the best, you know, that is the people you are really solving problem for. And then you try to iterate, you know, come up with solutions and then go back to them. It's an iterative process. And then find out that if the solution you're providing is what actually solves their problem. And then if eventually the answer is positive in the affirmative, you go ahead to build. Now, I can tell you that because you've done this process, you've gone through this process of narrowing it down, most likely that the next 100 people, so you use 100 people to get your data. I can tell you that the most 100 people that look like these people will most likely like the products. But the first thing you have to do is to identify them and then you do your research. I don't know if that answered your question. So you can't just say you are building for payments. Payment for who? For who? You get? And then you narrow it down, get the information from those people you think. So sometimes you might be wrong. After building up for you now find out that even people who even like the product, the people you didn't speak to. And that's why I see some companies, they build something they were not even thinking about, and then the business just grows, you know, beyond their expectation. Does that make sense? Zoom, I remember doing a listen on Zoom. Before COVID, in fact, Zoom, their site crashed during COVID, you know, because a lot of people started using, you are not targeting some people. All of a sudden, everybody's now using, so companies are enforcing it. So they didn't plan for that. And then they made a lot of money, you know, that period. Just telling you, but you have to start from somewhere. I don't know if that answered your question correctly.
All right. I believe that answered this question. So for time's sake, let's just move to the next person. Osayuki, please, let's have you.
Thank you, Blessing. Hi, Michael. Thank you very much for this really enlightening session. So my question is, how do you handle situation whereby you're building a solution for a partner or for a client, but you really think there's not enough data to back up the solution that they want for a particular problem, right? And it's of no consequence to you because however it is, you're going to get paid for that solution you're building, but as a product manager, you're thinking, so they brought that, okay, this is what we want, right? We give this for this is our business, but you're thinking this might not actually be the exact solution for you. But because if you as a product manager needs to do further product discovery, that will incur more costs, right, on the partner, or it's a cost that your own company will need to incur because of the additional time that it will take for you to deliver that particular solution to the partner. So how do you navigate such a scenario whereby you think this might not be the right solution for you, but there's really nothing much you can do because it's of no business consequence to your own organization? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, thank you so much for that question. In fact, I face that question sometimes, at least for about 2 products. I've had that problem, and again, like I said, the company that I work for, it's an agency. Their job is to build a product for a client, right? And so where they make money is when the client pays. So sometimes the clients may have what they feel is the right solution. And then when you begin to do your product discovery, you find out that, look, this client, this thing you are saying is a solution, is not going to work. And then the way the company charge the company per hour. So like you said, if I'm going to spend more time, then there is a limit. The client, the client has been told this is the limit you are going to spend. For example, we spend about 120 to 160 hours for that. So now if you go beyond that, it means that the company will incur the cost, right? And then this is a scenario, right? So I just want to be sure that I'm painting the scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, if you go beyond, and then the client may not even care whether you want, that is what they want. So what you do is this: you have to do your job right. But you win this. I mean, this is not just, I mean, you even give a scenario where this is applicable to where you are building for a client. There are also scenarios where you are working for your boss. You hear things like organ-driven development. You know that this will not work, but CEO insisted that this is how this thing should be. Even when you know that it's not going to be possible. So it's not just about clients. So, and then your conscience is even disturbing you, right? So what you do is, and that's why I said that product discovery is not something that, if you go back to my field, it's not something that you decide alone as a product manager, right? It's something that everybody, I think my conclusion, right? I talked about the fact that the entire team, it's better to focus the entire team in product discovery. And now going back to your question, let me use the client's situation. You carry your client along, you give them reasons why, you show them the data. For the little time you have, let's say you just have 5 hours to do that research. Based on the research you did, you as a product manager can't just even conclude and say this is the solution without even doing your research. Based on that level of research you've done and the insights you've gotten, you need to be able to demonstrate as a product manager, look, we're in the wrong direction, because now you are responsible for the success of the product. And sometimes this is where product management differentiates from project management. Project manager is just deliver the project. Right? Product management is continuous. So as far as that product is concerned, whether or not you are involved in that, if that product fails tomorrow, you have failed as far as managing that product is concerned. So you cannot say, because this is what the client wants, you are not going to do what you are supposed to do. Of course, there's a limit to that. But you need to prove, you need to justify. Again, our topic, justifying the facts. You need to show that this is the outcome. This is what users are saying, this is why we need to go in this direction. Your data should be enough to convince the client. However, there is a possibility that the client might insist. Right? What you can do, which I have done sometimes, that I tell my company, look, can we have a non-billable hours that I need to do this thing, Sometimes your company, if your company is also being carried along during the process of your product discovery, everybody understand what you are doing, why you are doing this and all of that. The company will be convinced, because at the end of the day, they know that if they build this product correctly, these clients will continually, patronize them. And tomorrow, if the product is successful, the client will even be happy, because we're not just building product, we also want to build products that is successful. So what I try to do is that, because I've been carrying everyone along, if the client is not convinced, my company will be convinced. And then if my company is convinced, they will allow me to do something. Then if the client still insists that this is what they want or nothing, at that point, at least, you've done your bit. There's nothing you can do about it. I have also had this kind of situation in real life, in companies that is not even, you're not bidding for something. And I told them this is the direction. I gave my data and everything that, look, this is what the numbers are saying. I did this research before we built this thing. When we built it, it was exactly the same thing. So I left. So the point is, I did the discovery, I did the research, and everything. I showed this is what we cannot go in this direction. The CEO insists we must do this. So sometimes the person who is insisting, there is a reason why they're insisting. So in that particular case, the CEO was insisting because they needed to raise money. They want to just show numbers, just want to do magic. You know, that didn't make sense to me. At the end of the day, everything I said happened, and they have to fall back to that my plan. But I would have saved my name. I don't know if that makes sense. I've made sure that the reputation of my job is not thrown out at the boss. I've done what I'm supposed to do. So you convince, if you can't convince, you let it be. That's just the short answer. But you need to do what you need to do, which is the discovery.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's have B or Fitila. B, please go ahead to ask your question. B, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you, Michael, for the question for the presentation. Yeah, my question is basically on research. Okay, basically, how do you, after you've, okay, maybe you have an analogy of who your customers are, your persona, how do you tend to form questions that make you understand them? Because I understand that there are some questions some customers might be saying, or some users might be saying that they have this pain point, they have this, but if you further check, oh, is this thing really important to them, you realize that it's not really a pain point to them. So how do you tend to differentiate those things when you're doing your research, so that by the time you're taking it for insight, it will be very easy for people using it?
Yeah. So, okay. So to answer your question, please, I actually like this. You know, again, when I said that sometimes people build something and then they're surprised that this is not what people are saying. So the response to that is, number one, Henry Ford, I heard, I don't know if it's true, said that if he had asked the people then what they wanted when he wanted to build, they would have said faster horses. I'm sure some of us have heard that. So now they are giving solution, which might not even be what they want. So what I tell people is that you do not ask your users or potential users direct question. What you do is that you engage them in a conversation so that you listen to things they are not saying. Some people don't even know how to say this is what they want or what they need. Sometimes it's not, like I always say, it's not a pain point, it's a desire. And I'll give you an example. I think I heard this from Teresa Torres. Let's assume that what you want to do is you want to improve, let's use Netflix, for example. You want to find out, you want to do a research to find out why people are not kind of staying long or watching Netflix longer than they should. You want to understand the problem. You know, why is it that people are no longer subscribed or that kind of thing? It would be a wrong question for you to go and ask a user directly. Why are you not watching? Why are you no longer watching Netflix, or why are you not subscribing to Netflix? If that makes sense. That is a direct question. The person can give you an answer, but that answer may be totally wrong. And if you use such data, because you ask the leading question, you know, the person might tell you something that is okay, what you want to hear. And that's why you hear that customers' insights is different from customers' voice, right? So people might be saying something, but it means different things. Oh, this a wonderful product. Okay, you build a product. Oh, you're buying now. They don't buy. So what's the problem? So what you do is that you engage them in a conversation. So back to the example. Someone is not watching Netflix. You don't ask them. So what do you now ask them? You ask them something like, tell me about the last time you watched Netflix. Remember that the problem you are trying to do, and that's why I talked about Teresa Torres. I'll share the article, right, that I wrote. You don't go and say, we notice you are no longer a user in Netflix. Why are you not subscribed as a product manager? Tell us why. The person will tell you anything. But what you ask the person, tell me about your last experience when you watch Netflix. And then the person tells you, before I started watching, there was just a lot of advertisements. But the movie made sense, but I was looking for one kind of adventures movies. I didn't see it in Netflix. Now, the person is saying, number one, the person I've mentioned that there was a lot of adverts when they are trying to watch. The person also mentioned that they're looking for adventures movie they didn't see. You've identified opportunities. Remember, I talked about opportunity. You've not asked them why they've already told you to without them telling you. And then they now say, and the fact that this adventure, well, at the end of the day, and the price is even too expensive. Now, this person have given you 3 reasons why speaking to you. Probably, if you had asked this person, why is it that they don't watch Netflix? They might just tell you that it's too expensive. And then you go ahead and say you reduce the price, but you've not solved one of the key problems. So in other words, even if the price is cheaper, he has not found movies that are adventures or the kind of movie he likes, and he doesn't like ads. So even if you reduce the price, if he finds an alternative that is probably the same price, he will go, because those people are really solving his problem. But you went ahead and asked him a direct question, so he's going to give you a direct answer. But when you engage in conversation, you then look at a number of things, and then you speak to 10 other people, and then you find out that it's becoming consistent. Like out of 10 people, 7 people are already saying that there are too much adverts, you know, and then maybe maybe another 5 people said, oh, the reason is that there's no adventures movie, and maybe just 2 people mentioned that it's because then you already know, oh, these are the problems, you prioritize them, and then you begin to find solution one after the other. So maybe you may start with stopping excessive ads, and then you take over the other one. So the point here is this: engage people in conversation. Don't ask them leading questions or direct questions, because you're forcing them to answer you, and they will just tell you whatever they think about them. Does that answer your question? Hello? I think the person who has
Sorry,
a question.
I believe you've answered that question perfectly. Maybe B is not here to really answer.
Yes, thank you very much. It's answered my question.
Awesome, awesome. All right, thank you very much. Do we have other questions before we call it an interesting and insightful evening? Are there other questions? Guys, are there other questions? All right, we have Chigozie Ibokwe. Chigozie, please unmute. Let's have you.
Right. Thank you very much, Michael. It's just, let me know if you can hear me clearly. I know
Yeah,
my network isn't good around here.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. My question is, you have explained very well the part of identifying the problems from making research before you build the solution. But what about when you have built a solution, and maybe you're not getting the kind of traction that you want? How do you know if it's like an issue with maybe the MVP that you have built, or if it's a situation where maybe that particular product, maybe the users don't need it, or if it's that particular way you have built it that is the issue? How do you know the difference? I don't know if you get my question.
Yeah, I got you. So your summary of the question is, how do you know if, I mean, where the problem is? Maybe the solution you built, it's not the right solution. Why is that people are not responding positively? Correct?
Yes.
I mean, students, yeah. So you recall that when I started, I mentioned that this process is an iterative process. Iteration means you can go back. So if you watch this, this is the best image I found that could demonstrate this. So there's kind of a back and forth. You can go forward, you can go back, and all of that. So you say iterative process and all of that. Now, what that simply means is that product discovery is a continuous thing. It's not something you do once and then you said you are done. So you've built a product, it's out there. You expected some kind of responses. You didn't get it. Maybe your assumptions were wrong. Maybe the solutions you're providing is not exactly hitting it the way people want. You go back to any process, wherever there is that bottleneck, right? If it's on a research, maybe you didn't do proper research, you go back. So you can always go, maybe you're even solving the wrong problem. Maybe the problem you chose is not really the problem. Maybe the solution you decide to focus on is not the solution. And that is why people iterate. That's why you hear version 1, you hear version 2, the product improve and all of that. So you cannot just sit down and cross your leg and say you built a product. No. you have to go back and forth. You have to find out, is this solving the problem? You use tracking tools. If it's a software that is tracking tools, you want to know how people using this. Talk about tracking tools that track even people's behavior, how they're interacting with this, engage them. Okay, we notice that you use this platform once you subscribe. This way I talk about the pirate funnel. So maybe that's another class on its own. Pirate funnel. You want to know, okay, why are people not, okay, they move from point A to point 2, point A to point B, they activated, they subscribe once. Why are they not reusing the platform? There is a problem there. You identify it. But a lot of products are built without any form of tracking. They just build it and they expect signs and wonders to happen. So if your expectation or your outcome is not the way you expected it to be, you need to investigate. And even when it is going the way you expect it to be, you also need to look out and find areas of improvement. It's a continuous process. It's not a one-time thing. So I don't know if that answers your question. So you remember when I talked about the goal, you see at every point, it's continuous. This iteration, it keeps on happening. As you do, you ship a product. As you do, you ship a product. So it's continuous. You can't say there's nothing like we'll finish product discovery. It's a continuous process. You hear things, you Google online, you hear continuous product discovery. All right. I believe that answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, you answered the question. Thank you.
All right. That makes sense. Let's have you, Bohan Ulak.
It's solid.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great session. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask in terms of selecting your target persona. So is there a process, for example, you find that there are two sub segments that you can probably target, both are sizable, both can be profitable, and say, if you are working on transport, both are looking for a solution in transport. One is perhaps predominantly female, one is predominantly rural. So how do you go about shortlisting your target persona? Is there a process about that as well?
Yeah. Okay. So remember when I said in the beginning, thank you, Bohan. I believe this is India or Pakistan. Yeah. So thank you for that question. So remember when I said in the beginning that product management is like in the middle of business. You talk about human beings, user experience, and then you talk about technology, right? So, but then because you want to solve a problem for human beings, you want to use technology. The business is also important, right? Because the business must make money, must make profits. So from a business standpoint, it's ideal that you build products for a market that is large, for scalability. So you cannot say that in a particular city, you're trying to build a product for people in that city, for example, and there are 100,000 people. Let me use a lesser number. There are 1,000 people. And out of these 1,000 people, right, the problem you want to solve, the mass of the people who are interested in this problem is maybe people living in a particular area or a particular city, and this area there are about 700 people, and then the other area is 100 or 200. You are not going to say, oh, because you just want to solve problem for everyone. You focus your research based on the people where you have the greatest margin of people. So if 70% of the people, or based on your research, or the target market is this kind of people. So it could be male, it could be female, it could be people within a certain age bracket, right? You have to focus your research based on that. So you can't just say yourself. That's why I said in the beginning that you have to suspect what are the kind of people that I am solving this problem. You have to do a kind of mapping to say, okay, this is the ideal customer, right? And that's why you see, for example, you can't say if you want to build a software, for example, you're building for people who are over 80 or 70, they might have problem with vision, they might not be seeing small text and all of that. So you need to understand at a very high level, people you suspect you are building this product for. And then what you now do at the lower level is that you now go ahead to engage them in conversation. If the outcomes of the conversation is not what you are doing, then it might be that the market is not what you think it is. Because what you are doing at that point is that you are validating your assumptions. So you have to make an assumption, and then you go ahead to engage these people in conversation to validate that. It might be that the problem you want to solve is not even, this is not the right state. So for example, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria. My father that Lagos is not even the right place to solve this problem. I can give you an example of Bolt and Uber. Bolt or Uber, they've tried to operate in some cities, but they didn't get much traction. People were not interested in operating in those areas. And then they decided to concentrate in some other areas. Again, you talk about pricing, understanding the dynamics or the people you are trying to solve the problem. For example, I travel to you, same distance, you know, that I would have done in Bolt or Uber. Here in Lagos, maybe 3,000. Yeah, I was seeing it 1,000. I was wondering. But the same thing happened in some part of Abuja. I had to ask the guy, did you start the trip? What happened? How come is this price? So you need to understand the behavior, the behavioral tendencies of your potential users. You need to have some kind of suspicion, and then you validate it by doing the discovery, by engaging them in conversation. So the first step is to suspect these are the kind of people, and then you go ahead to validate. I don't know if that answered your question. So you have to suspect first, and then you go ahead.
No, it does. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Micheal. I believe there are no other questions. Time is fast spent, so it's really an insightful session. Thank God it's recording. So we're going to have the recording up on our YouTube, so you can go ahead to watch it as many times as you want, because this is a very, very insightful session, right? So thank you all very much for joining today's session. Thank you so much, Micheal. It's just amazing to have you in